3.8 degrees at the very bottom, and therefore we should also be very cautious when taking samples, because also the results may vary quite significantly depending on at which level we actually take these samples. And if we do fail to take into considerations this stratification and different layers, of course we fail to get plausible results. If we want to understand what is the current state of the lake, of course we should take different measurements. Here I have included a list of most essential measurements, and of course we also have to know about all these parameters and how the measuring should be done. Otherwise, of course, the measurements will not be very trustworthy, and sometimes it is not very clear why. For example, there was a case where one lake showed the highest content of phosphor throughout Latvia, and actually it turned out that they simply took the sample at a very shallow part of the lake. Therefore, the results cannot be treated as very representative of the situation throughout the lake. And sometimes we also apply the sensors incorrectly, and of course you should possess the knowledge on how to perform all these procedures and how to take the measurements.
So what concerns measurement data, we have done a lot over the years. We have collected the previous or historic data, and then we can create a small software in order to measure the correct data and also estimate what other data is needed. We have quite extensive data, but of course, as is the case with data, it is never enough. So one of the examples how the historic data is collected, so this is the example from Umia Lake, 1908. So this is the stratification map of the lake. So in order to have a correct interpretation of the data, the person that is dealing with the data needs to take the measurements him or herself. If you don't have the knowledge about where the data is collected, about the site, you will arrive at incorrect conclusions. The most difficult part is the assessment of the lake conditions. We have around 4 people who are certified or are qualified to perform quality assessment of lake conditions, and there are quite many mistakes that the people are making. Those who are not specialists in this, so these are the requirements that you need to fulfill in order to become a qualified lake assessor. And the mistakes in the assessment arise from the lack of qualification. So what are the threats? The wastewaters is the main threat, and here are the other threats as well. So what concerns purification of wastewaters, those responsible for purification are not always looking at the results that need to be attained. They only look at the standards, because it all is related to cost. For example, the elimination of phosphorus is costing more, and so on and so forth. The most common mistakes. So the treatment of wastewaters without specific phosphor treatment will not eliminate the treatments. If we are talking about the lake, the phosphorus need to be eliminated. What concerns Loxos, it was a lake where the treatment facilities were changed. The money was basically wasted because the change of the treatment facilities didn't give any kind of result, because they did not care about the phosphor, and they were treating it based on a wrong methodology. What are the success stories? So the success stories are quite often the results of work done by unknown authors. What concerns Balva Lake, a lot of sewage waters were dumped there in the lake, and the situation was improved by stopping the dumping of wastewaters and redirecting the wastewaters to other rivers where it was possible, and this is also extensively done around Europe. Then we have Kuryanova Lake. We can see that the Kuryanova Lake seems to be a sort of unfit lake, but if we measure the things according to the measurements, the condition of the lake is fine, and the melioration systems are good, having all the facilities. So again, author unknown, but the result is genius. What concerns Zosna Lake, their system is very good. If you look into the information, you'll see that there are drainage systems where the sewage water is collected, and they use the traditional biological treatment systems with a system of ponds and soil filtration system, and we have a settlement which can enjoy a clean lake in its vicinity. And the Ambipurova Lake is another success story. The sewage was directed into the lake previously from the nearby residential houses, and by redirecting the sewage waters to another place, the lake was saved. What concerns legislation, has certain gaps. A lot of legislation has been based on EU directives, so usually the civil servants transposing the directives are going for the maximum without thinking what should be the results that need to be achieved. If we focus more on the results to be attained, or on the objectives to be attained, the results will be better. So that's all for me. I hope you will have questions. I'm certain that there will be questions. So very useful information. I have a question. You started by saying that yes, there are polluted lakes. You listed some methodologies, but hey, essentially Latvia has become greener over the last decade. We are using less pollutants in the agriculture, and we are buying the environmentally friendly washing powders and detergents, and what about the overall sort of the green indicators? Are they going up or are they going down? Well, with respect to lakes, there are no major improvements. Our system is rather, sort of say, stubborn, I might say, because everybody is following legislation. And for example, the Ludza Lake, which is very close to the city, is used to dump the sewage waters, and for example, the Ludza municipality are rejecting altogether the introduction of phosphor treatment systems. So there are no trends that are showing the improvement. How come you are saying that there are no improvements? There is European Union. Don't call Ludza municipality, call the EU institutions. Well, you see, the Ludza municipality is a large municipality, and the EU is a big, organization, and these requirements are rather vague, and they do not really address our local situation, northern situation. So instead of sort of transposing the directives, we should rather look at the experience of Scandinavian countries, which are sort of in the climatic sense closer to us. Yes, and the same concerns microbiology. In southern countries, some things are, acceptable, but if we follow the same sort of guidelines, we will be in trouble. Do we have any other questions? Oh, we have 2 questions. Let's start with boys then, this time round. I have a question. In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that, so you talked about the adverse effects. What are the adverse effects of fishing on lakes, licensed fishing, of course? Well, there are very interesting methods that, as I already mentioned, the benefit or the adverse effects. If a person is agile enough, so to say, They have the regulation which prohibits